Good morning, everyone. Kate Bora and Fiona Pearman joining you for this week's Facebook Live as we continue to talk about self-trust. And this week, we're going to talk about how do you build that self-trust as an individual. I think let's start with, importantly, it's built through small intentional actions that reinforce your ability to rely on yourself. And I think this one's really crucial. I often think it's the big things, but it's the little things that create moments where we don't trust ourselves, where we don't follow through, we don't do what we say we're going to do. And so the corresponding part of that conversation is it's the small things we do every day consistently over time that will really reinforce and create that strong foundation of self-trust. I think the first thing to think about is raising our self-awareness and getting clear. The clearer we are on who we are, what we want, where we want to go, active confidence number one is get clear and make decisions. So the clearer we are on our values, our strengths, what's important to us, the easier it is, right, to be able to make decisions from a place of confidence because we have certainty. We have certainty about what's important now, what's not important. And with that foundation, we're able to confidently make decisions that we can trust. And when we can make decisions from that place, then we can confidently take action from that place as well.
Yeah, I think a big piece we notice here is we end up comparing ourselves a lot to others. So just notice, limit the comparison to others and focus on what's true for you. That's why the clarity, the self-awareness is so important because there's lots of other stuff going on for those other people. There's all sorts of drivers, conditions, circumstances that are very different to you. And when we start measuring ourselves in relation to someone else, it can really hold us back. So getting clear, focusing on what matters to you, using those values as a path, as your North Star, asking yourself, is comparing myself serving me here? Is that actually helpful? Or what other ways can I stay focused on what matters to me? And I think this is where that commitment piece, the following through, the consistency really adds up over time. We often talk about small promises. What are the ways in which I can just show up for myself each and every day? You know, whether it's the regular exercise you get, the way you're eating, the way you're interacting with others. There's lots of little places and ways we can start to create habits, the regular things we're doing each and every day, and making that our normal. Because when we do that, we can rely on ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to keep them small. We can sometimes get ourselves into a bit of a tricky space when we've made a ton of commitments and we're trying to keep them all. So I always talk about what's the small thing. There's a great book, Tiny Habits, absolutely worth a read, that talks about what's the tiny thing, the small commitment that you're making. The analogy is often used around push-ups, right? I'm just going to do one push-up. And when I'm there, the commitment is one. So I've honored my commitment when I've done one, but it's likely that if you're there doing one, you're probably going to do a few more. And this is where accountability buddies can be really, really useful. That's why, our program Acts of Confidence, done within community, and we have buddy groups, all of these things, we create a really strong accountability container because this is how we start to really understand ourselves and implement strategies that mean I'm going to be able to say yes to the things that are important to me. But in the moment when I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling a little bit lazy, or I just can't be bothered, that I actually will follow through on these commitments, right? Because saying yes to myself is more important maybe than saying yes to another glass of wine or watching Netflix. I think there's a really important segue here into a conversation around managing expectations on ourselves. This really talks to capacity. In my experience, we often overestimate what's possible for us in a short time frame, and underestimate what's important or what's possible for us in a long time frame. And so setting realistic, achievable goals along the vein of tiny habits, what's the really small bare minimum commitment, right? And being able to honor that, to be able to follow through on that promise, so that I can start to really build that strong feedback loop that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
I think there's a really important piece here to catch when you're over relying on external validation, and just to notice What are the ways in which you keep involving other people, or you keep asking for approval, or you keep checking in? Sometimes external feedback is useful, but if it's overused, it means we haven't got independence or self-reliance. We can't actually trust ourselves because we're looking for someone else to validate us all the time. Your own knowing, your intuition, your experiences actually are enough to make decisions, particularly the small ones. Again, we're starting with what are the small places rather than asking for input or opinion. I can just go ahead and take action, because each time you do that, you're actually fueling that confidence muscle within yourself.
Yeah,
And
I was going to say, I often talk about the feedback triangle, right? We've got our own self-feedback, feedback from trusted peers, colleagues, supporters, and then feedback from critics. And part of the process of calibrating all that feedback is about starting to rely on, trust our own self-feedback. Sometimes we can be overly harsh and critical, so that's unhelpful. And we want to start to build the skill to be able to moderate and then rely on that feedback. And I think this is a really critical piece around learning to start to trust our intuition. It was certainly a journey for me as someone who was heavily orientated to getting feedback from external sources, to be able to start to move to a place where I could trust my own thoughts, feelings, observations, decisions, and then be able to follow through without the safety, right, of someone else saying, yes, that's a good decision, or yes, I agree with you, say yes to that.
I think this then dovetails beautifully into growth mindset. Growth mindset is all about the willingness to give something a go, to try something, take imperfect action, to potentially fail and learn from the failure. And when we don't get external validation, we're going to trust ourselves. Sometimes things aren't going to work out as we'd hoped. And we can then take that new intel, that new data that we've got, and forgive ourselves, feel okay, with permission to not get it right, and to be willing to learn as we give things a go. This is so crucial to having that inner confidence, what we call core confidence. And look, we know that this won't feel comfortable. The first few times you do it, maybe for the first couple of years of working with this, will often be taking action that initially feels uncomfortable. We're doing something that we haven't done before. And so this is part of the practice. This is the work to be kind to ourselves as we give something new a go.
Yeah, I think an important piece is that we build the feedback loop that even when things don't go perfectly or the way we'd like, that we can handle those challenges, right? We can handle those roadblocks. And that starts to build, uh, a reliance of I will be okay no matter what, right? And that means when we come back to the decision making, we're less likely to feel fearful of it going wrong, because if it does, I know I've got this, right? I can take care of it. It won't be the end of the world. And that's a really important feedback loop to lock into our nervous system, right? It will build confidence, it will build courage, it'll build certainty. I think the final piece I really want to catch is around self-talk. If we continue to beat ourselves up, if we continue to ruminate on negative thoughts like I'm terrible at this, or this isn't working out and it should be working out, and this really circles back a touch to the expectations we have on ourselves, we're going to really beat ourselves down. And so we always say, speak to yourself like you'd speak to a friend. It's really useful if that is the inner critic is really loud in your world, starting to pay attention to that, not to be able to assess whether it's right, to be able to qualify and challenge the stories that it's telling you, to be able to start to turn that inner critic down and turn it around, to be, yes, someone who can help us challenge and look out for roadblocks and things that might go wrong, but not someone who's in the driver's seat, not someone who's making all the decisions, particularly making those decisions from a place of fear. We're going to leave it there. So much, hey, so much we could cover in this conversation around self-trust. I think a really important one that we really invite you to lean into, to think about what it looks like for you, your relationship with self-trust, and importantly, leveraging today's opportunities to really start to build and grow your own self-trust and reliance. Team, if you've enjoyed today's confidence conversation, we'd love for you to share it with others in your network who you think might find some value in it. If you'd like to see more of these conversations, especially the video 1 and 2 in the series around what is self-trust and what can get in the way, please head over to our YouTube channel and be sure to subscribe. That way you'll get notified when new videos are released on there as well. And if and ready, when you're ready to go deeper with your relationship with core confidence, visit our website, coreconfidence.com.au.